extremely nice and became very good friends of ours, but you know, their kind of rock and roll life was somewhat subdued on tour. We decided we needed something more, and we decided to, you know, put on this contest.
They were so open to anything because you figured that there were 4 guys out there. Only one of them really was a musician, was Alan. The rest of them had learned. Well, Martin was a composer. Martin was special. Whether he's a musician or not, he's like some magic creature that appeared. But the fact is that all the music was on the tape. And they're just out prancing around the stage, kind of having a great time.
Hi guys, and welcome once again to another episode of Piano and Keyboard Artist, the channel where we discuss everything related to keyboarded musical instruments, pianos, synthesizers and artist development with me, Vaughan George. And today it's a big one. We're talking about Depeche Mode 101. Okay, this is a big subject, so I've decided we're going to divide this into 2 parts. This is part 1. And how we're going to flow with this video is we're going to alternate, as you guys know from our previous videos, we have a sort of like a free flowing style here, which is kind of, I like to keep it spontaneous, like we're 2 friends in a room. Just imagine it's just you and I in the room and we're just 2 friends talking. So if you've watched my previous videos, you'll see that I talked about how later on down the line, and I'm busy doing preparations to, I'm going to be doing reviews on all the Depeche Mode albums from Speak and Spell all the way through to their current album Spirit. And that is coming soon, but the reason I'm jumping in with 101 is because 101 to me really is the album that kind of really got me to love Depeche Mode. And as you see in one of my previous videos, I talked how Enjoy the Silence was the very first song I heard. I bought a compilation album with various different artists. Side 2, first track, put the needle down the turntable, Enjoy the Silence came on, boom, the lights went on. Something in me ignited, and it's like everything came alive, and I was like, oh my god, wow, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I had a good friend at school, one of my best friends in school, my brother from another mother. Special shout out to you, my brother Andrew Giddy. He was like he was like the cool kid in school who knew everything about music. He was a big Depeche Mode fan, and when I heard Enjoy the Silence, he said, give me a blank tape, bro. I remember he recorded it for me, and I listened to that over and over, and that's how my love for Depeche Mode started. And obviously when I saved up my pocket money, I was able to buy the actual cassette, and long time ago. Point I'm making is that 101 was a great introduction to Depeche Mode. 101 to me is really like a greatest hits, which really showcased all their best songs from their inception in 1981 all the way to their current album at the time, which was Music for the Masses. And of course, as I say, I listened to that 101 cassette over and over, and it's so deeply ingrained into my consciousness and into my being at the moment. My introduction to Depeche Mode was listening to 101, and from 101 I would go on, I went on and bought all the other albums, and it was always strange for me to hear the original studio albums after I was so used to hearing 101. I lived in a small mining town, and you know, access to record shops and stuff was really impossible where I grew up. So anyway, as some of you have asked me if I was to recommend a album to anyone getting into Depeche Mode, I would probably give them Violator and then 101, because 101 to me kind of covers like all their sort of all their 80s period, and then Violator is kind of like the album which starts off in the 90s. There's a lot to cover in this video, because I want to sort of speak not only about the concert but also about the documentary which they filmed at the time. And the documentary was filmed by legendary documentary maker D.A. Pennebaker and Chris Hegedus. And as far as the documentary goes, you know, I remember watching this sort of like in the early 90s, and I remember when I did watch it at the time, it was a little bit, not annoying, but I just found the documentary to be really, it was just all over the place. And I watched it recently just to sort of, you know, refresh my memory. And it brought back great memories. But watching the documentary at the time, I did find it really annoying. It was all over the place. I think, but in retrospect, if I look at it now, I think the documentary, the way they filmed it at the time was quite ahead of its time. Because if you look at documentaries these days, they do sort of jump from scene to scene or over the timeline. Whereas I think back in those days, I think documentaries, in my opinion, were sort of a bit more linear, where they, there was like a timeline. But now watching this documentary for the first time, the 101 documentary, I was a bit like, where are they now? Because it would jump from scene to scene. There were those scenes where they were in the dressing rooms ready to go onto the stage, and you'd hear the tour manager saying, okay, start the tape. And you'd be like, right, okay, where are they now? Is this behind the scenes at the 101 concert? Is this another concert? So it's all over the place. And the decision was made by D.A. Pennebaker and Chris Hegedus when they filmed the documentary to, I don't know if it was them, but them and the band had decided, we're going to get these teenagers in and fans, and we're going to film the fans. And as Chris said in a recent interview, which I'm going to post the link to below, she said that something along the lines of the band, the four guys, Martin, Fletch, Dave and Andy, she said they were really, really nice, unassuming, kind, really down-to-earth kind of guys. But there was nothing sort of like rock and roll and sort of like edgy about them, in the sense that they were quite clean-cut and serious. So to make the documentary a little bit more edgy, I suppose, it was necessary to sort of get in, these teenagers and film them, and the drunken rock and roll lifestyle of the teenager. So, and as I say, at the time, when I used to watch the documentary, I used to fast forward, because I was not interested in the teens. I just wanted, all the fans, I just wanted to see Depeche Mode. And some of the scenes which jumped to my mind now was when it starts, when the documentary starts, it goes, okay, start the tape. I think you should say, start the intro tape. Okay, intro tape starting. Dum 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 bum bum. Pimp comes in. Can I just say pimp? Pimp. What a track. Did I just call it pimp? It's pimp. A pimp with an F. Yeah, and as I say, the documentary jumps from scene to scene, and I remember the parts that I used to love watching were all the parts with the band. As I say, I wasn't interested in the teenagers, but watching it again now, I appreciated the whole thing, and I even appreciated the randomness of it. And I think at the time, what I would have liked to have seen, and even now, is, okay, I don't mind so much all that stuff with the teenagers and stuff, and that's fine. But what I would have liked to have seen was the actual whole concert, because you don't actually see all the live songs. What I mean by that is, I would have liked to have seen the whole performance, as we got with the Songs of Faith and Devotion concert, where it was the whole concert filmed. With this, it was just like, there was a song there, then it would jump to the teenagers, and then you were backstage, and it was all over the place. And I was like, oh, I just want to see the band. I don't want to see these teenagers. So yeah, the documentary was great. As I say, I watched it recently, and my memories of the band driving into the Rose Bowl, Pasadena, in that Cadillac. Oh, is that driven, a beautiful Cadillac there? Is that driven by Gayhan himself? Is that a Cadillac? And I think they're going to come up here and speak to us. Depeche Mode! And I think Alan's got a few things to say. I do here. Good morning. We'd like to say good morning and welcome to all our fans listening and watching here this morning. And to celebrate our 101st concert, I think, we're doing a special concert at the Rose Bowl, Pasadena, on Saturday, June the 18th. Something like that. As you can see, I watched it millions of times as a teenager. So here is my current copy of 101. As I say, I first had it on blank cassette, and then I bought a cassette, and then I had it on CD, and now I have it on vinyl. And vinyl, was that creepy? And of course, some of you can remember record shops. Do you guys remember record shops? Back in the day, you'd go into a record shop and you'd spend all your day in there. You'd spend a whole day in a record shop going through the vinyls and picking them up, looking at the artwork and feeling, actually feeling it, and taking the record out and smelling it. And okay, that's enough with the smelling, Vaughan, but it's you know what I mean. Smelling's one of the senses, and I used to just love getting the vinyls and just looking, pulling them out, and look at the fabulous artwork you get. There's just something magical about vinyl, and I'm so glad to see vinyl has made a comeback. And it is a lot of effort though when you listen to a record, when you want to listen to something. My other half, who's a lot younger than me, she wasn't even really familiar with vinyl, and when I first got a record, and I sat her down. I said, here's a glass of red wine. I'm going to educate you now. And I bought a turntable and I put the vinyl on, and she was like, "Oh, it's a lot of effort, isn't it? It's such hard work." But I said, "But you don't understand, going onto music streaming sites now and choosing songs at random. I know that's the way the world goes, but there is still a place to actually sit and listen. There is still a place in the world to actually take a vinyl and just listen to a body of work, from beginning to end as a cohesive piece of work." Remain on topic. It's worth mentioning as well, and this is a geeky observation, but then again, I make no apologies for geekiness on this channel, because this channel is for you and me, the fellow geek. Okay, and what's worth mentioning as well is the track listing on the album. Now, the track listing on the cassette and vinyl are actually missing 3 songs, and those 3 songs are Sacred, Nothing, and A Question of Lust. And obviously the reason for that is, obviously a vinyl takes about 20 minutes. A vinyl can take about 20 minutes of music per side. So this being a double LP, that's 80 minutes of music. They would have had to decide when they press these vinyls that they would have to lose 3 songs. And why they chose to lose those particular 3 songs, I don't know. But so it was interesting, as I say, listening to the cassette and then listening to the vinyl. And then many years later, when I bought the CD, I heard the extra tracks, which were Sacred, Nothing, and A Question of Lust. Of course, when you listen to it on Spotify today as well, now you can, or any other streaming service, you will be able to hear the complete track listing. I think with that in mind, let's jump into the concert. And as I said, I've got some of the Alan Wilder samples here, and I'm going to run you through the track listing, and then we're going to play some of the samples too. Okay, so jumping into the track listing, as I say, we're going to jump between the documentary and between the recording, and we're just going to roll with it. The show starts off with the first track, which is Pimp with an F. Pimp. What does that mean? Okay, they then walk on, and as Pimp ends, you hear dum dum dun 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 dun, and it has an 8-bar extended bass line sort of intro, and then of course we have the iconic. And then the if you watched a video I did about a month ago, which was this one, What Does Fletch Do? I ran through some of the samples, and if I knew that video was going to get 40,000 views in a month, and I'm not bragging, I'm just, as I say, I'm quite overwhelmed and blown away by the amount of interest there is in the subject of Depeche Mode. But if I had known that that video was going to get so much interest, I would have probably, at least made it more slick and polished. And of course, when I did that video, I'll put the link below for you to see it, it was just sort of like, and as I say, it wasn't really scripted, it was just me sort of on the fly pulling up the sounds from the samples and showing you what the various members play. And of course, I think a lot of you understood that, but then of course to the minority of people who were quite critical, I just have to point out to you the individuals who said, or the one who said, "Oh, you play keyboards like a 6-year-old, my 10-year-old can play better than you." To you, I say, I'm very happy for you and your 10-year-old son that are so talented, but understand that when we do these videos, the idea of this channel is not for me this channel is not about me. It's not for me to impress you with my ability to play songs or whatever. If that's your thing, you can go online to YouTube and you can see there's a lot of fellow geeks playing Depeche Mode songs with absolute precision. As I say, when I open up these banks, I haven't practiced them, we're just talking. So please understand, this is just free-flowing. Okay, so we've had Behind the Wheel, and then there's the other part that Wilder goes, and then you've got that car sample. And it's quite interesting what I should mention about some of these sounds. These are the Alan Wilder sound banks, and as some of you have mentioned, that all the sounds on here are all Alan Wilder sounds. I don't know if that's true actually, because I have actually seen Fletch on stage playing this part. I've seen him playing that part, and on the subject of who plays what, we can delve deeply into that. I'm just sort of going to cover the 101 period for this video. So remember guys, when they went live and they had that, okay, start the tape, they had their drums and their bass on that tape machine. And as I say, when I met Martin Gore in a music retail store in London, in Soho, many years ago, I will talk about that video in detail because some of you have asked me, so I'll speak about that some other time. But I remember asking him a lot of questions that I always wanted to ask if I'd ever met one of them. And one of the questions I asked him was, I said, Martin, what are you guys doing on stage? What are you playing? And I never forget his exact words were to me, we overdub it live. We overdub it live. So in my mind, that just means they've obviously got the parts playing on tape and they play over the top of it. Now, a lot of you criticized, Fletch always gets a lot of criticism, but in that last video I did, a few of you said, Vaughan, Fletch doesn't play. We don't believe he's actually doing anything. And guys, there's a lot of rumors to that. However, and the bass parts I showed you that he played, hypothetically, those are the parts that he would play. Whether they're making it through to the speakers, to your ears, I'm not sure. But, you know, as D.A. Pennebaker said on that clip that I put in the beginning, he said there were these 4 guys on stage and it was all the music was on a tape and there was only one musician. So yeah, bear in mind that it was always the drums and the bass that was on tape and all the other little parts were played over the top. And how much of that was played live, guys, it's debatable. Some of your comments were, well, the 101 recording is flawless. If you were at the concert, it would probably not sounded as flawless. Remember what I said, it's common practice for for bands once they've recorded to take the recording to a studio and fix the mistakes and release it, you know, kind of make it sound better for commercial release, and that's just the way things are done. Also, as legend has it, Alan Wilder did talk about the 101 concert and say that I think they were having bad monitor problems and I don't think they could hear themselves really well. Martin also talks about they were quite nervous because of the 65,000 people that were there. You know, it was the biggest concert they'd done up until that point, so well, the end result of 101 is a fabulous recording and one of the best Depeche Mode recordings of all time. Right, the second track they did was Strange Love, and I've just pulled up the Strange Love bank of sounds from the Alan Wilder sound library here, and let's just see what we've got here. Oh, that's the bass sound. Okay, so so if we'd start off with the that's right, and then you've got the oh, there it is. Interesting, when you play these sounds in isolation, a lot of them sound quite reedy and a little bit, dare I say, a little bit crappy. But then again, if you're a producer as well, you would know that, you know, sounds are not meant to be judged in isolation. They're meant to be heard as part of the mix as a whole. Of course, when you add them to the backing track and the mix, they fit in perfectly. And of course, remember that these sounds would have been EQ'd and processed, and they probably even got some compression on them and everything, so that they would sit perfectly once played over the backing track. So you've got the and then Alan Wilder would do the okay. Yeah, and then I don't know what these sounds are over here, but yeah, Strange Love, and yeah, it was a very, very good version of Strange Love, one of the best. Actually, in fact, there are a lot of the live live versions on 101 to me are sometimes, or to me, some of the best live versions they've done. And but then again, I'm probably biased, and probably because I've listened to the 101 album a million times, it's probably so drummed into me. They then went on to do the next song, which was Sacred. I don't actually have any of the sound banks for Sacred, but yeah, it was a very good version. They also went on after that to do Something to Do, and Something to Do is an incredible Depeche Mode classic. It's got a really intense, kind of agitated, unsettling kind of sound, and the most recent song that Depeche Mode did that actually reminded me of Something to Do was that song Wrong, I was born at the wrong time. Da, da, you know the song. It just has that kind of, although the tempo is a lot slower on Wrong, it just has that same sort of agitated intensity and makes your skin crawl kind of thing in a good way. Brilliant song. Right, so after Something to Do, they went on to do Blasphemous Rumours, and once again a great version, and I've pulled up the Alan Wilder sound bank here. Let's see what we've got. It's a little... Some of the sounds on that song are quite kind of childlike and creepy, but it's kind of got this like horror feel to it. And of course, this sound here, like a music box. So that sound is girl of 16, whole life ahead of her, slashed her wrist, bored with life. Now that to me is like a Fletch sound. What's that? What is that doing on the Alan Wilder sound bank? Anyway, and then that's probably that's probably the melody. What is it? I don't want to start any blasphemous rumors. That's that part. What have we got? Yeah. That's the how does it go? Oh yeah, that's also an Alan Wilder part, yeah. Brilliant. I love these sounds. They then go on to one of my all-time Depeche Mode favourite songs, Stripped, and also went on to do, this is probably one of the best live versions as well. It's kind of got that like extended. Now, on the subject of the duk, and one of my subscribers actually spelt it, duka duk. He said, Vaughan, the sound duka, and I said, you, my friend, are a serious geek, and you are one of my tribe, and you are welcome here. He actually wrote out duka. He spelt it, and it was about that long. Anyway, one of the questions I asked when I was doing the video, what does Fletch do? I was very curious to know, you know that sound on Stripped? It sounds like a locomotive to me. And there are many theories. A lot of you say it's a Harley Davidson engine that has been tuned down. Some people say it's Dave's Porsche. But that myth has been debunked. One of you, thank you very much, said that if you watch the Alan Wilder Recollected, when he's talking about when he did that series a while ago, when he auctioned all his instruments off, he said that preset was actually that sound was actually a preset from the Emax synthesizer bank. So it was actually a sound that I believe they didn't make. It was just a preset, which kind of goes against their philosophy at the time, which was like their philosophy at the time was you should make your own sounds. You can't use presets, and you never use the same sound twice. But anyway, and I think when you guys talked about the sound of Dave's Porsche, if you listen here, I think this will be the sound here. You can hear they've clearly sampled the starting of a car engine. And then I think there's another one. And then, so that's, and there's somewhere else there's, and that to me is, that's clearly the sound of a handbrake. So yeah, that to me is the sound of Dave's Porsche but that is apparently a preset they used from the Emax sound library. So thank you guys for helping me debunk the myth. And then of course onto Stripped, we've got that. Now I know some of you have pointed out that this part, that Martin does play that part live, and he does. You're right, I've checked it out. And but if you watch the 101 documentary, and you will see Alan actually going, and then jumping to that part. One of you has said that Alan does play this part, but then apparently Martin plays that part as well, but he's got different samples, so they're actually playing those two parts together in unison. And I think that's probably right, because I have seen, and thank you to you have pointed it out, in recent concerts with the Martin is definitely playing that part, and then Fletch is playing the droning sort of bass sound. As Alan did say in a lot of documentaries and forums and stuff, that Fletcher's part mainly was to play drones, sweeps and sound effects. Yeah, so just geeking out some of those. Let's see what else we've got here. So we've got the... And as I say, that's like a guitar sound to me, which is... And then they combine it with something else, but it's got a real sort of like... It's got a real sort of industrial sound, and that... As a serious fan and a geek, it is so great to hear these sounds in isolation. It was like a dream come true when my mate gave me these sounds. I was just like, oh my god, I can't believe I've got these sounds. And then, oh, here's the come with me. How's it go? Come with me into the trees. We'll lay on the grass. Let the hours pass. Okay, then of course we got to the section of the set which is in typical Depeche Mode style. Gone, walks off the stage, goes and has a break, and then Martin takes the mic and does a couple of songs. And the first song he did was Somebody. And what's interesting is I've got the original piano bank or piano sound from the Alan Wilder bank. And what's very interesting, guys, is when you listen to it like now. That sound, I mean, if you listen to it now, it just sounds really crappy. It just sounds really, and I mean this with the greatest of respect before you bite my head off, bearing in mind that in those days, look, if you buy you can even buy a cheap digital piano these days, and the piano samples are really, really good. But back in those days, I mean, they would have probably have had to sample this piano themselves. The point I'm making is, it's not a great sound, but of course, to demonstrate the song, I'm going to use that sound because this is actually the sound on the bank. It just sounds really sort of like, I don't want to say unsophisticated, but you know what I mean, guys. This was 1987, and of course sampling and all of that was in its infancy in those days. But I do think that version of Somebody is probably one of the best versions of Somebody. One of the best recorded versions of Somebody we've heard. So it was. And then Martin just sang it beautifully. He just sang it so well. Some noticeable improvisations that they did on this live version, which were different to what the studio version was on the record, which was Some Great Reward, was when he went but when I'm asleep, I want somebody who will put their arms around me and kiss me tenderly. That's the way he does it on the record. And then at the 101 version he went, but when I'm asleep, I want somebody who will put their arms around me and kiss me. Then I went, tenderly. Well, things like this make me sick. But he also added another line, so it was, though things like this make me sick, in a case like this I'll get away with it. And then he did another line, and in a place like this I'll get away with it. Added that extra line, and yeah, I still think this is the most beautiful version of Somebody that him and Alan have ever done. Right, after Somebody, they did Things You Said. I heard it from my friends about the things you said. And I've just pulled up the Alan Wilder sound bank here. And where's the melody? Oh yes, that's the I heard it from my friends about I heard it from my friends about the things you said, but they know me better than that. And then you've got the melody part. Oh, let's see it. What's it? And then you also have this. Well, I don't know what that sound is, but you. And if you watch the live recording, you'll see Alan doing the. But then he does the. But then he also plays this in the left hand. Something like. You play like a 6-year-old. Then of course Martin's finished his 2 songs. All the girls are crying, and Dave's come back on, and he's fresh to kick ass and do the rest of the show. And they come on to do Black Celebration. Also, once again, one of the best versions of Black Celebration I've heard. And of course we all know the well, they've got those creepy sounds that they've taken the Black Celebration and they've done that to it. Then of course you've got the and the main melody. Then of course you've got this drone sound here, which I believe Fletch would play, but it's on the Alan Wilder sound bank. Let's have a black celebration. Black celebration tonight. It's all there. Right guys, so if you had listened to this concert on cassette, this would be the end of side A. Or if you had listened to it on vinyl, this would be the end of the first disc, or the first vinyl. In other words, the halfway point. So I think this is a good place to stop the video now. Make sure you've subscribed, because part 2 of this will come out soon, where we'll delve into the remaining set list, as well as some more other aspects from the video and various other things that we've not discussed. Guys, as a final word, I just want to say thank you so much to you all for subscribing, and the interest in this channel has been mind-blowing, in the sense that, wow, I started a channel thinking I'm going to talk about a few topics that I'm interested in, and I've been so unprepared for the interest, but I'm so grateful. And so keep those comments coming. As I say, for this video, let me know what you thought about 101. Yeah, anything you want to add to this, and also if you could suggest some things you would like me to talk about in part 2 of this video. Who knows, it might even go to a part 3, but we'll have to cap it somewhere. Guys, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you, and I will see you on the next video.
and